Okay guys, this is part 4 of the custom Namalsk server. Um, did part 3 before, that was the clothing fix. So if we want to add this stuff to our loot tables, then we have to pull them as per usual. So let's go ahead and go into MP missions, extract our mission PBO. I'm gonna, since I know this one's working, I'm gonna back this one up. Right, we're gonna be making edits in here. Let's open up another one, and we need to go back into the DayZ Epoch client files, the DayZ code PBO, into not loot, that's the actual loot spawners. You need to loot configs, so go into configs, and we need config loot. Everything that's in here we need, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab this whole thing. So go into DayZ code, configs, just pull this over, copy it there. Okay, that's all we need out of there, and we're going to go ahead and make an adjustment to description.ext to redirect to this one. So let's go back to description.ext, and you can see here's the config loot line. So again, just going to remove that PBO prefix. You see a trend here? DayZ code, DayZ code, DayZ code, configs, configs, configs. Okay, all of these are in the same directory. So that's all we do is redirect that by removing the PBO prefix, and now it'll go to this. That's all you gotta do. Okay, so now we can edit the loot tables. So go back into here. And I'm gonna open up another one of these because I need to go into my traders, so configs and then config server traders. I need to get some class names out of there for the warm clothes, and I also need I need the APSI, and then you might recall that we enabled the full screen night vision goggles, so I want to put those in my loot tables so they show up. So config loot is where this is starting everything, right? It's including that loot defines. It's including config building loot right there. I think the positions. Yeah, so here's config building positions. So it's adding all of these into the one file. So if you want to know how these look, what the syntax is, go into loot defines, and you can see here, this is what they look like. If I open like weapons, right? It looks like that. You got loot weapon, you got groups, there's containers, right? There's group, weapon, magazine, loot piles, backpacks, vehicle, container, which is usually in the medical box, and I think the ammo boxes are also containers. Yeah, these are containers. Or are they groups? I don't know. Either one of those. Custom. Execute given script. Script must be an return an object reference. So, okay, call my function. You see that? Yeah. You can do your own custom stuff, I guess. But we're just going to edit these. I wonder if you could do... I don't think you can because... yeah, you can't. This is just for like a custom loot. But anyways, so this is just, if you take a look here, you got minimum, maximum. That's the minimum in a loot pile that you would see like in a supermarket or something. You would see a minimum of 1 object and a maximum of 3, right? That's all that means. Containers, this is minimum objects in a container, maximum objects in the container. This is just the examples. So we want to add the warm clothes, the APSI, and the full screen night vision goggles to our loot tables. And you could take a look through here. You got build, if you know, you're just opening the config loot and you go into buildings. These are going to be the spawn positions for each of the different buildings. And you'll see that there's a loot chance. If you want to, some people ask, how do you make it so all buildings spawn loot? Well, change your loot chance to 1. That would be 100% loot chance on the farm buildings. Now, these other variables affect that as well, because they're kind of low actually. But I'm going to leave that at 0.5. I'm not going to modify it, but this is where you do it. And you see where you see this loot chance on a building itself. This is the default farm building. If these classes here don't have a loot chance listed here, some of the military buildings do, it inherits from this. Okay, so you see farm right here. This building inherits the attributes of farm. This. Unless it's overwritten here, then you'll see this happening. Okay, so some of them have what they have Z position, loot position. So this is where the zombies spawn in there. You can turn the zombies off by changing your zombie chance to 0. You know, you can customize this shit. So I'm just going to close that. So where are we going to add this? We need to go into groups. And we need to go into clothes.hpp. So you see these lists of clothes. They're groups. If you go into buildings, you have to be in groups and then buildings. And then if you go into military, this is the loot that shows up in a military building, and then there's military small. These are the, like, you know, where in the barracks where the toilets are and the sinks, or on like some of them, like like on top of racks and on top of shelves and shit like that. That's where the small stuff goes. The big stuff is like on top of the bunks and stuff. Big spawn points versus little spawn points. So there's military, military small, military special, and then military special small. So these are barracks and, you know, fire station, anything that's, you can actually find out if you go into the buildings and go to military. These are all the buildings that are classified as military. You see there's defaults for military, military special, and military industrial. Military industrial is like what do you call it? The hangars. But so you got land A station house, which is a fire station that has military loot in it, right? This barracks has military special in it, right? This other style of barracks, these are the big ones with the open door and the bathroom in there. That's just military loot, right? So there's a few with military, there's some with military special. And then there's also, what do you call it? Crash sites. I don't know if those are listed in here. Maybe they are. Let me see. Yeah, see here, these are the crashes. UH-60 Army wreck. So those are military loot as well at these crash sites. I don't know if they're just the regular wrecks. There's no loot positions listed there, but I think it's because it uses the crash spawner. It has its own spawning, right? It just lists the building here. But there is, in groups, there is a, something, what does it say, crash or something? Yeah, crash site. Right, this is the crash site loot, and it has military stuff in there. Right there you see night vision goggles, and you see military clothes and special clothes. So if I'm back here in clothes, you'll see clothes, military clothes, and special clothes. Now you could add these 3 class names to here, to these lists, and just, you know, tack them on the end. Just copy this, make sure you're aware of your commas. Just tack them on there, just change the skin name, right? You can change the loot chance. This is a 2% chance that it'll spawn. You can bump those up. That's how you bump up your loot chances. This number in the middle is a, what do you call it? There's a loot chance. Be careful if you do like, some people would do a F. You could, like, let's say I wanted to change everything that's 2 to a 10. I could do that. Just go Control F. And I want to do 2 with a comma behind it, and then replace with 15 with a comma behind it. That'll bump up the loot chance significantly. So what I would do is just replace that. Be careful though, because some of these have, like a 1 here, but there's no comma behind it. So you should be okay if you put a comma behind it. So if I do a replace all, you'll see that it replaced everything with a 2 comma with a 15 comma. That should not have broken anything. But you do have to be careful, because, and you can do the same with this. Control C, Control F. See, you got 3 comma, replace with a 15 comma. Okay? And there's a 1 comma. Just be careful when you're doing this, because you can fuck shit up really bad. So now everything is showing 15% loot chance. Except for that one's a 4. You could also do that one. You can do that one manually. Right? Just be careful you don't fuck up and delete a comma accidentally like that, because it'll give you errors in the RPTs and you'll wonder what the hell's going on. But that's how you bump up your loot chances, just like that. You can do that with any of these categories. I'm not going to save this because I'm not making super loot tables. That's how you make super loot tables. If you're wondering how to do it, go into weapons here. Okay, so everywhere, all these guns and shit have, they're actually kind of low spawn. But if you want to have a shitload of guns spawning in barracks, just change these. Change this 0.02 comma, replace it with 15, or you can go up to fucking 100 comma. Replace all. Okay, so now every time it selects this gun, it's gonna automatically spawn it. You just have to do that with each one of these things. Okay, that's how you make custom loot tables, high loot tables, so to speak. Just bump all these things up. Just be careful, because these have numbers in it. You should be okay if you put a comma behind it, because I don't think none of these class names are going to have commas behind them. So you should be okay doing that. Okay, that's how you make high loot tables, is just bumping up these numbers. You got these numbers here on the arrays themselves, and then you have, in the buildings, you have the loot. Remember I showed you the loot chance? So a church. Okay, so the default is 0.3. So go through. Some of these might have a loot chance in them. I don't think any of these do, but I know some of the military buildings do. Let's look at that. Okay, so the default loot chance is 0.4. But see, this one has a 0.4 by itself. It's overwritten. You could remove that if you want, and it would just use the default. But you just bump these up. Just bump it up to 1, and then it'll be 100% chance that that building should spawn loot. But realize that, these are kind of low. So there is a chance that the building won't spawn shit just because these are low. So if you want to see tons of shit in every building, just bump all these numbers up. Okay. That's how you do custom loot tables. You can bump up the shit that's in the ammo crate. So minimum of 10 magazines. Bump that up to 20 and or 50 or whatever you want. These ammo crates hold quite a bit. I'm not sure exactly how many magazines each one holds, but they do hold a lot. So we're in military, and I want to add, getting back on track here. I'm getting a little, but I'm just explaining how that works, so that's useful anyway. When it says loot group, it says pistols. Okay, so you go into groups and then weapons, and you'll see pistols, right? What it's doing here is it's saying choose this group, and then there's a 10% chance that it will spawn a pistol that's selected randomly from this list. It will spawn any one of those, and you see there's a chance there. So it's kind of like compounding interest if you're into finance. You know how compounding interest works. You got a percentage chance on the building itself, a percentage chance on this group spawning, and then a percentage chance of the individual weapon spawning. So that's why this shit can get pretty complicated. You should, once you make an edit to it and it works, back that shit up and then play around some more, because if you miss a comma or something like that, you can fuck shit up really bad, and it won't work. And the errors you get in the RPT do not say, oh, you're missing a comma here. It'll give you some other bullshit about not being able to assign a magazine to a gun, right? Because that gun doesn't exist. So it can give you a pretty good indication, but not really, because it does. A lot of times it won't tell you what gun. So just be aware of that. But you can bump all these up. You know, you can bump, if you want to see all these guns spawning frequently, just bump these numbers up. Right? You can do. I've done that before. You could put them all at 100%, and you just have shit everywhere. There should be crap all over the barracks. You know, every one of the spots will have something in it. It's a little bit stupid because then it's too easy. That's like easy mode server crap. Most people are opposed to. At least I'm opposed to that. So back in close, since I got distracted there, you could add the warm clothes to these arrays, or you could make its own array. Just for the tutorial, I'm going to make a new array. So, so I put my cursor in there, I hit enter one time, and I'm just going to call this warm clothes, and then copy this format. You got to open and close bracket set, space equals space, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, semicolon, put your cursor in there, hit enter. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this. Well, I'm going to copy the one with the comma. Okay, I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm just going to move this to other view. I'm going to grab this skin name. Remember, that's a skin. All these say skin. That's an inventory item. Whoop. I'm just going to replace that, right? And I can paste it in there 3 times. There's 3 camo clothes, or 3 winter clothes. The last one doesn't have a comma. Always be careful with that shit. If you see a closing bracket here, last one does not have a comma. Right? Same here. So let's replace these other 2. And this, if you do it this way where you make its own class, they will show up more frequently. It just depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to do it this way just for the tutorial, but normally I would just add them to the end of these because there's a lot of clothes in 106.1. So you could just tack them on the end here, and then you would see, depends on how grindy your server you want, but you know, they're in the traders, so you can always go and buy them. But if you wanted a survival type server where you got to go out and find the stuff, go loot and find stuff, then you would just not even put them in the traders. You could always do that too. So there's our list of warm clothes. There's just 3 of them, right? So I'm gonna save that. Okay, I'm gonna close this because I don't need those class names anymore. And I'm going to put them in this military.hpp. This is all the loot that will show up in these barracks. Or military buildings, including fire station and whatnot. But you see here you have special clothes, you have military clothes. Let's just copy this. This is a group. Whoop. So this is also a group now. Warm clothes is a group. So I'm just going to copy warm clothes. There. Make sure that this is not the end of a list. This is just spaced out for viewing, you know, easier to read. This is just a comment. You could bump this up if you want, or just leave it as, you know, it's a 1% chance you'll see it. But what we could add this. This is in military, right? So I'm going to copy this, and I'm a military small. There's also military clothes and special clothes. I'm going to put it there as well. Military special. Yep, there's clothes here. I'm going to put it there. Military special small. Right there. Okay, so I'm just going to put them in here. Kind of group them together because these are all clothes. Military industrial, there's no clothes in there. There's no clothes in there. You could choose other buildings. So I'm going to save that real quick. Close that. See, that's all we did was made a new group. Added our skins to it. There's 2% chance, right? Compounding interest. Okay, so if you want to have the clothes spawn in other areas, you could do that. Go into buildings, and let's say, where else do clothes spawn? Supermarkets? I'm not sure if clothes spawn in supermarkets. Some of these, like you see, like there's a trash. So do you want trash in your military buildings? There's a trash here. If you don't want trash in your military buildings, just delete it. Just like that. Just get rid of it. Just be mindful of your this is commented out, but this is the last one in the list. Doesn't have a comma. There's a generic loot. What's generic? Let's go find out. There's generic right there. It's just a list of stuff. There's generic right there. There's generic small. They even have tents in here. They got nails in all these. A lot of this stuff is DayZ vanilla stuff that doesn't have much use in Epoch yet. It's not really being used for anything. Like stuff like to siphon gas out of a vehicle now, you need a jerry can and a hose. So where do they have that? Is there a hose in here? There's rope, nails, duct tape, string. One of these has a list of there's herb box. I don't even know what that's used for. I've never used an herb box before. But if you've noticed stuff that you don't want in your, you know, you don't want to spawn, you know, nails I think should only be spawning really where industrial stuff is spawned, like the industrial buildings. So, you know, you can just you can lessen the chance of stuff spawning by just removing it. So I'm gonna string, duct tape, rope, nails, all that stuff is up here as well. So let's just, you know, thin it out a bit. So now you have less chance of that stuff spawning. You could add other stuff in here. It's just how you customize loot tables. If you want something, add it. If you don't want it, take it out. And be mindful of your commas. And also if you change the loot spawn chance, don't miss a comma. You know, use your find so you have a 1 with a comma behind it. Make sure you do that. And back up your shit before you start getting deep into that stuff. So supermarket, I'm not going to add anything to it. I'm just going to stick with this military stuff. Now, night vision goggles, config traders category. We were in friendly tool belt items. Yeah. So if you notice, we added APSI here, and we enabled these. We took it was commented out. We enabled them by taking the comments out. These are sell only. The night vision goggles. We want to use these. So night vision goggles, and you just add underscore DZE to it to make it change the class name to full screen night vision goggles. So everywhere I see night vision goggles, because you're going to Control F and see if I highlighted it, it puts that in there. And replace with, whoa, shit. Okay. Night vision goggles underscore DZE. Okay, so it replaced 2 occurrences. So there's night vision goggles, the full screen version. And there's one other. Let's highlight this and it'll tell me. Right there. So it spawns in 2 places, military special and military. I don't know if it spawns in any other building. Let's go back here. I don't know if it's in any of these other lists. I don't know. I think you can only find night vision goggles in military style buildings though, as far as I know. That's how you... So now you won't find regular night vision goggles. You just find the full screen ones. And I'm going to add, anywhere you see night vision goggles, I like to add the APSI. So let's, I'm just using that as a template. And be aware of loot weapon, loot tool. Some of these things are different. So night vision goggles are considered a weapon. They go in a weapon slot. You know, your inventory manager figures out that goes on the tool belt, but it's still considered a weapon. When you look at inventory, it's listed as a weapon. Loot tool, those are what other tool belt items. I guess you could change this if you added it to the... I don't even know where this list of tools is. Is it in here somewhere? It must be in here somewhere, but I'm not sure where it's at. Parts? No. No, these are vehicle parts. Consumables? Those are food? Yeah, that's food items. Where the hell is it? I don't even know. It wasn't in weapons, was it? Tools is kind of a group, though, it looks like. Or is it just a single item? I don't know. Shit. But anyway, that's a single item. That's not calling a group. That's just a single item. Binocular vector, that's a rangefinder. But anyways, loot weapon, APSI. And I've tested this already. This works. Where's the other night vision goggles? Right there. So I'm going to add them here too. Right? 2% chance that they'll find them. You could add them to any other, array or building by default. They're just in here. What are we in? Military.hpp. Okay. That's military loot for the military buildings. You could add them to other areas if you wanted. What are these attachments? Those are the attachments that go on the guns. Those are magazines. They go in your magazine slots. This stuff is pretty easy. I mean, it's just a lot of copied and pasted and changing numbers and doing this and that. You can bump them up if you want. Trash loot, don't change that array, but you can change the occurrences. Like, let's say hospital. See, there's trash loot in hospitals. If you don't want trash loot in your hospitals, delete it. And then make sure that the last one doesn't have a comma on it. You want to change the contents of a medical box. Some of these things, like a blood bag tester, they're not really used in the classic Epoch. You can enable the vanilla style, so I'm not going to change that. Maybe you want more heat packs because it's Namalsk and we're going to enable the cold weather stuff. You could increase the occurrences of heat packs in different areas. You can do that. Medical pile, these are loot piles, right? You could add to the loot piles. Medical boxes, those are going to be here in medical.hpp. See, you see medical box? That's a group. And you could get rid of blood bag empty, if you wanted. You could get rid of blood tester. You could add, see, like here it says loot group antibiotics, because there's 1 dose, 2 dose, and 3 dose antibiotics. I think there's a regular one that's just a single but doesn't have that class name. Blood bags, see, they have this, but if you have the classic Epoch thing set on, it doesn't spawn these. It just spawns the regular blood bag, so I'd just leave that alone. Low, high, those are just, you know, medical low, medical high. Those are just loot piles. You can bump up all the chances on here if you want more of this shit. Just bump up these numbers, right? You can do that here and here. Remember, it's different spots. So let me save this one. I don't want trash loot in there. Close that. Medical, you could add to the medical box. You see there's no, the medical box doesn't have any. Let's get rid of blood bag empty because those are kind of worthless. And I'm going to add antibacterial wipes. Okay, so now antibacterial wipes will show up in those medical boxes. Right? Just make sure that you're aware. Watch your commas and shit. Right? So that's it. You add night vision goggles, APSIs. We added the warm clothes here. These are just military buildings, but that's where the night vision goggles and shit show up. So that's all you do to edit your loot tables. If you want to do customizations, make sure you grab this, you know, back it up, make a copy here. So if you go in here and make all kinds of changes and fuck it up, you can always pull these back over and try it again. Okay. Let's go ahead and PBO this. Delete that. And we can go on the server, but it's kind of worthless. I'm not going to sit there and do a loot run, you know. But I mean, I can if you want, but chances of me finding that stuff right off the bat's kind of slim, you know, because I didn't bump up the numbers. We'll see if we can find some warm clothes and, excuse me, APSI though. They're in the loot table, so they'll probably be there. But, yeah, the stock Epoch loot tables are kind of grindy. They're not, you know, loot explosion, loot shit everywhere, that kind of stuff. I'm still at the traders too. I don't have admin tools on this, so I'll have to drive over there in my SUV. But when you make a change, and I didn't do it on the last video, but when you make a change to your server, always check your client and your server-side PBO to make sure that you didn't break anything. Because if you start getting errors, you stop now and then fix it and then continue on with your mods. Ooh. Stuck there. I found this SUV on my way here when I did this server reset, and then I bought some parts and some jerry cans and fixed it up. Ooh, bouncing around like crazy. Okay. That's the military base over there. I don't know how many of you haven't played Namalsk before, but it's a freaking cool map. Sumrak is a genius for making this. It's good. Bus in the way. Alright, let's see what we can find. If you don't want to stick around for this, but next video I'm going to add the cold weather stuff now that we can wear. What do we got here? Team leader. That's not warm clothes. There's not much in here. You see, if you bump up, oh, it's down here. If you bump up your loot tables, you'll see a lot more loot in here. Small cam on it. I don't think we'll find an APSI in here unless we do a bunch of loot runs. Might get lucky, but I doubt it. But that's loot small. You see these small areas? What's this? Magazine. I've got some map fixes for this too, because you can't get in these goddamn barracks. See? I got some map fixes I got for that. But the APSI will look like that. One of those things. One of those, what do they call them? Weapon holder. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to find it or not. They're in the loot tables, but I don't... Whoop, fuck you. Yeah, I might bomb out here. Nope, I don't think I'm going to get lucky. Anyways, that's how you add the stuff to the loot tables anyhow, but it looks like we're not going to get lucky on this loot run anyway. They're in there though. Okay, well that's it for this video anyway. That's how you add shit to the loot tables, so we'll see you guys next time.